I've discovered ways that the new iOS 18 can further boost my day-to-day productivity, and in this video I'll show you how I'm using it so you can do the same. So I've just got hold of the developer beta of iOS 18. Now before I do get into it, it is important to understand, unless you're a developer or you're willing to take risks with your device and your data, then I would recommend you wait until the full release in September, or at the very least only use the public beta, and ideally not on your main device. But I've always been one to take a few risks and to push my boundaries and knowledge, so I've took the plunge and installed iOS developer beta. So let's take a look at how I'm using it, what I found, and importantly focused on how I'm using it to boost my productivity. So let's start with the home screen. Now a great simple but new feature of iOS 18 is we can finally place icons anywhere on the screen. So when we long press to make changes, we can just drag and drop them wherever we want. So this is my home screen layout, and what I've done here is to go minimal. I've placed my main messaging apps at the bottom along with the phone, and the rest of my screen is just reserved for a few things. We've got the calendar so I can quickly see the date at a glance. I've also got a folder with all my other common communication apps, and because I do use quite a few for different purposes, I've got these batched together in a folder. I've also got Safari as my go-to browser, although you could use Chrome or whichever other browser that you prefer. And I also use the app Things, and this comes with widgets that you can customize, but we'll come back to this a little later on. So you might be thinking, well, what about when I want to open the wallet or the camera or social media, read the news, check my bank account and so on? Well, these are all things that I might want to do, but they're kind of secondary to my main focus on productivity. I often don't need these in the moment. So I like to treat my home screen like I would with my home office setup, and that is minimal. Less clutter means less distractions. So when I want to get to any of these other apps, I've organised these instead on different subsequent pages. But because I have the iPhone 15 Pro with the action button, rather than use it for one action, I've got this to open a shortcut folder, which contains a set of quick links that I also might want to get to quickly. In here I've got the option to quickly chat with ChatGPT, create a task in Things, I can do a voice search, add a quick note to remember something, or access passwords in the new Passwords app. Using the action button like this keeps all these actions quick and convenient, but again avoids cluttering up the home screen with a mass of icons. Now I've always used the built-in calendar in iOS, but it does have its limitations, and I've often tested other popular calendar and scheduling apps, which sometimes give that little bit more options on how you view things and what you can do. But in this latest update, Apple have made a slight change to the view options. The new monthly view in particular now gives a bit more of an overview of any given monthly period, and you can expand the view as needed. I also now tend to use this 2-day view, as it means I can see the day's schedule as well as the following day. I can also squeeze or pinch to expand the hours that the view covers. I've got multiple calendars, so I've got these all colour coded to help me visualise things easily. Now there isn't really much new in the way of changes to notifications in iOS 18, but this is worth a mention because it's incredibly important to maximise your productivity. Each of us can easily have tens, even hundreds of individual notifications every single day, and every one of these can be a, well, micro distraction, and if you're in the middle of some focus work, it will disrupt your flow, interrupt your train of thought, and you'll lose seconds, even minutes of productive time. So this brings me to how important this really is, and if you really want to be productive, we have to stop most notifications. So first of all, when you install an app, it will ask you whether you want to enable notifications. Most of us usually just hit yes without giving it a second thought, but in iOS we can tailor every single notification. Firstly, in an app there may be some specific notification settings. Check whether you really need everything selected. You can probably opt out of marketing type notifications that aren't needed. And once you've tailored these, then in the iOS notification settings, give further thought to the option. Do you need the notifications to come through as they're generated? Maybe they aren't that time crucial, so actually you might only need to see these at a particular time once you finish your main work. And you can do this using scheduled notifications, which will hold these until the times you set here. Then, when you do get an alert, firstly, think, do you really need that alert to interrupt your workflow? What if it only appeared in the notification center instead of a banner? I do this for many, and I choose to turn off the sounds. This means that the phone won't vibrate, there'll be no sound, and nothing pops up on the screen. But when I manually choose to view the notification center by swiping down, only then will I see what has come through. Even doing this alone can massively reduce distractions. Another consideration here is whether you also have a watch. I choose in general to have almost no notifications on my Apple Watch. I just don't need it going off all day telling me there's an Uber Eats offer or a new email. I generally consider emails as a non-urgent form of communication. We should get into the habit of being very selective as to when we choose to read our emails and when to respond. And on the whole, I try to check mine probably 3 times a day at most. Once in the morning, maybe once mid-afternoon once I've completed all my priority tasks, and again in the evening. And again with email notifications, well, I recommend you turn these off perhaps altogether. You might even decide to turn off badges so you don't even have that tempting red icon pushing you to open the inbox when you see it rising in number. You can gradually improve your notifications over time. Over a few weeks, try making a concerted effort to review and think about every notification that comes through. And when you do get one, slide it left and open Options, then view Settings and think carefully whether you needed that notification. Do this for a few weeks and you can massively reduce future notifications. You might even decide to turn some off altogether if they don't actually serve any useful purpose for your productivity. So another way you can help your focus is to use the focus modes in iOS. Here you might set up a focus mode for when you're working on specific tasks, for example, or when you're driving or at the cinema. With focus mode you can choose which screens you want to show, so you can choose to only show the apps or icons that you need, and you can customize notifications to suit that specific focus mode. And then when it suits, you can choose the right focus mode from the redesigned control center, or you could even link it with the action button instead to give you a quick list. Choose whichever method works best for you, as long as it's quick and convenient to do so. Now iOS gives us a selection of widgets which we can use both on our home screens or on this widget page when we swipe left. Here I've got a minimal number in use only. I can quickly see my day's schedule from the calendar app without needing to open the app itself, see my battery status or set certain actions via shortcuts. And as with all of this customization, you want to think what really matters to your daily routine. So now this isn't iOS specific, but as it's a significant part of my productivity routine and has a prominent place here on my home screen, I wanted to touch on the app things. So Apple have also updated the Reminders app, and it can now also show tasks in the calendar, which is a good step forward, but I've just never really got along with reminders in my workflow. So once I tried Things, I never really looked back. Things allowed me to make really quick to-do tasks which were initially dropped into the inbox. This is a space where they can be reviewed and then later added to a specific category or project, added to a date, set as recurring, and with added reminders if needed. I've created a daily habit for myself where once a day I review my inbox and select and choose tasks. I usually do this in the evening planning the following day, as I'll know what time I have allocated to any given task or project, and then can designate those tasks as I intend to complete them. Once I've added a task, I can let my mind forget about it, as I know it won't get forgotten. This helps keep my mind free and able to focus on what matters. If we try to remember everything all the time, our minds, just like a computer with finite memory, will get full, the tasks get jumbled up, harder to recall, and can lead us to be stressed and overwhelmed. So it's really simple, just try never to remember anything. Instead, use an app like Things to do this for you. So if you want to be productive with your phone, focus on these 3 things. Minimal. Consider carefully which apps do you really need access to regularly. Distraction free. Carefully and precisely adjust your notification settings so that only the bare minimum are permitted to interrupt your workflow. And purpose. When considering how to be minimal and reduce distractions, focus on the purpose of every single decision and question whether what you choose will help or hinder your productivity. It does take a little time to set up and fine-tune, and just like a home office you might have to do a little spring clean every so often, but if you're keeping the habit and routine of maintaining this setup, ultimately you'll help supercharge your productivity. Have you tried iOS 18 yourself yet? I'd love to hear if you have and how you're using it to be productive, and do any of these techniques work for you? Everyone will have different priorities, so there's no one solution for everyone. It's about finding what does work for yourself. And if you want to learn more about how to be productive, you might like to check out this video just here. Give this video a like if you found it useful, and I'll see you in the next one soon.